Alright, what is up guys? I am back with another deck profile, and this is a deck I've been actually playing for quite a while now, but I've been hesitant to post it because I am missing a key card from the strategy, and I figured I might as well go ahead and post it and get it out of the way and just kind of talk you guys through that missing card and what I would play and why I have yet to obtain it. But either way, this has been one of the most fun decks I have played in a long time, and that's really saying something considering that pretty much every other week that I've been going to locals this year, I've been playing a different deck. You guys saw Phantom Knights, you saw DDD, you saw Tri-Brigade, you saw Invoke Dogmatica, you saw ABC Therion, and you saw Pure Dragon Link and Adventure Dragon Link. And Adventure Dragon Link was probably my main deck, my most competitive deck for a while. Of course, more recently the ban list happened, but even before that, this deck right here snuck in and won that Nationals first place, and that's when I realized that the new Rikka cards that came out in Power of the Elements were insanely powerful, and that this deck is actually a pretty good counter meta call against the Splight tier element meta that we have right now. But a little bit of history about this archetype before we get into it. So, of course, the Sunavalon cards are played by Spectre in the Variants anime, and these were first adapted into the TCG in Ghost in the Past last year, the first Ghost in the Past, and I liked the strategy back then, but they didn't have a whole lot of potential. Like, playing them pure was kind of suboptimal. It was kind of a glass cannon deck, but being able to make a Sunvine Thrasher that's a 4,000 attack Goyo Guardian was pretty cool for what it was worth, and Sunvine Bloom was a pretty powerful trap card. And then, as 2022 went on, we got the Therion cards that came out, and a lot of people were playing Adventure Sunavalon Therion, which I was thinking about making because the ABC Therion deck wasn't really working out for me very well because I didn't have 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity. So I was getting all of the Therion cards and all of the Sunavalon cards that I was missing to go for that strategy, when all of a sudden the Rikka deck comes out of Nationals not playing any of the Therion cards or adventure cards, just playing Sunavalon and Rikka. And I said, well, I have the entire Rikka core just lying around. I have every single Rikka card in multiple copies because, you know, we opened Secret Slayers. We were excited for Rikka's. It's one of Michelle's favorite archetypes. She absolutely loves the artwork and everything, and has wanted to play the deck pure, but we just kind of sat on it and didn't do anything for a while. Meanwhile, Adamancipator and Eldritch stole all the spotlight, and then COVID happened, and now that we're back on the other side of that and tournaments are actually going on, it's really ironic that Rikka, the sleeper deck out of the 3, was the only one to actually take a major tournament like that, and Adamancipator had the living hell nerfed out of it before it ever had a chance to be competitively relevant, which is really funny. So it is super, super cool to see these cards in the spotlight and as powerful as they are. And the version that was played at Nationals, this is not a copy of that. This definitely is my own take on it with some card choices that are different. But I did have to, you know, learn the combos and everything. It's a very interesting mid-range deck where it does combo, but it is still very much a control-based deck with a grind game in mind. And the most powerful thing about it is the specific type of interaction of tributing your opponent's monsters is such a difficult thing to get around because so many cards are not prepared for. I mean, just look at how powerful Kaijus and Lava Golem are to see that tributing your opponent's monsters is a very powerful thing that you can do. Combine that with the fact that this deck is incredibly consistent. It can perform its combo with a single copy of this vanilla right here, and the fact that it gets you several cards over the course of its combo, so you go plus several times and end up with like a 4 or 5 card hand at the end of your combo even after everything is all set up. It sets up like 4 or 5 or more different forms of interaction, some of which are difficult for your opponent to get around because they're kind of that unseen interaction, like having a card in the graveyard that can activate. And it's just a lot of things that your opponent does not know to play around, and so it kind of gives you the element of surprise and the ability to play around a lot of the more popular cards in the meta that people are more familiar with how to play around. So let's go ahead and get into the list. So we're actually playing 3 of the vanilla, the Sunseed Genus Loci, and I find this absolutely hilarious that a vanilla with 0 attack has more premier tops than all of the staple boss vanilla monsters in the entire game, like Dark Magician and Blue Eyes. I mean, Blue Eyes had a stint of playability for a while, but it's been like 5 or 6 years since then. Meanwhile, this card in 2022, a level 1 vanilla with 0 attack, is being played in one of the best decks right now. So even though it's a vanilla that does nothing, it gets you to all of your combos because the deck has several Link 1s, which we'll get to. I've always made the claim that Link 1s are always a mistake, and if there is a deck that can abuse Link 1s, then it's destined to be powerful, which was the case with Prank Kids and with Dragon Link and with Salamangreat and all those other decks. So this deck takes advantage of that as well. So those of you who like to skip through deck profiles and just look at the cards and not actually read what the person is saying, I'm sure will roast me in the comments for this, but I do not own a copy of the Sunsea Twin. This is supposed to be the twin, but this is in here just as a substitute for now because it's another body you can summon off of Sowing, which lets you link off. But the twin is not only a body you can summon off of Sowing, but it revives the loci. So you have yet another body, and your end board is stronger. You can still combo very well without that card, and I've had to make do without it. But this is supposed to be Sunsea Twin. Shout out to my friend Devin. He's supposed to hook me up with one, but I may have to just either wait for him to give it to me at Anime Week in Atlanta at the end of the month or try to track down a copy. But no, none of my local shops have one. None of the people at my local shops have one. It's basically the equivalent of a 50-cent common. And so I haven't been able to like get around to ordering that online because I'd have to order it with something else and pay for shipping and all that, so I just haven't been able to get my hands on a copy of it. And yeah, I've been playing this deck for like 3 or 4 weeks now. 3 copies of Petal. This card has aged incredibly well and has gotten so much more powerful with the new support. So it's the other best normal summon in the deck. If you don't summon the Sunsea Genus Loci, it lets you search a Rikka monster, and then the fact that it comes back at the end of your opponent's turn is incredible because not only does it give you another body on the field afterwards, but you can search again then during your main phase when it comes back around to your turn. So try not to forget about that graveyard revival effect. It's super important, so we absolutely want to max out on that one. The new one out of Power of the Elements is insane. So the Princess, there is no condition that has to be met in order for you to summon this out of your hand. You can summon it out of your hand for free, but it locks you into plants afterwards. A lot of cards in this deck lock you into plants, but we don't really care about that because we play a mono-type plant deck anyway. It's a level 4, which helps us make our powerful rank 4 that we need in this deck. And it is a monster negate in the graveyard that recurs itself by shuffling itself from the graveyard back into the deck. And it combos with the other card released in Power of the Elements, the field spell, which we'll get to. So this is an absolute mandatory 3 of. If your opponent is not playing cards like Called by the Grave and DD Crow to get this out of your graveyard, then they're not paying attention to what this deck does. We've got 2 Mudan. Seeing this over the course of your combo is mandatory. It searches a Rikka spell or trap. You usually summon it off of Lunefire Blossom, which you get off of Aromatherapy Jasmine. But if you hard draw this or hard open it, you still get value off this. That's why we play 2 instead of just 1. And you can usually recycle this back to your hand with the effect of the rank 4 as well for follow-up next turn. Always good to have follow-up on your next turn. So Primula, I originally only had 1 copy of this, and I tracked down a second one for this deck because this card is crazy. So it's a level 4 extender that you need to pair with Princess. One thing that I learned, and we'll talk about this when we get to the spell card, Glamour, is if you add this off of Glamour and tribute one of your own plant monsters to do it, at the point of resolution, when this card is in your hand, you can then immediately special summon it. It's like Salamangreat Gazelle off of Signet Mining in that regard. As soon as it has been added to your hand, at the point of resolution of Glamour, you can then special summon it, which is insane. But barring that, you still have plenty of opportunities to summon it out, and it's a level 4 body that you use to make the rank 4 with. We have the 1 Snowdrop. This is fine at 1. You could get around with playing 2, but this one is important for making the rank 8, or it could help you make the rank 4 if you have awkward levels on your field. I'm tempted to experiment with some other cards, like maybe Titanial. I'm not sure if the Therion Lily is a level 8 or not, but I'm thinking about playing Titanial in here because the Rikka Glamour always lets you add pairs. So a Rikka card and then a plant of the same level as that card, and there's no pair with Snowdrop because she's a level 8. There's pairs of 1s and pairs of 4s, but there's no pair with the 8. But you usually search this card over the course of your combo and use it to make the rank 8. You target a plant on the field and make all plants that same level. So usually target herself and make her and everything else level 8 so that you can make the rank 8 Rikka Queen. We've got 2 Lone Fires. Most people play this at 1. I'm actually considering cutting it down to 1 as well because it's fine if you hard open it. If you normal summon it, it is another copy of Sensi Genus Loci or of Petal or of Mudan. It's incredibly versatile. It gets any of your plants out of your deck. You usually see it over the course of your combo with Aromatherapy Jasmine. But the downside is if your opponent negates it after it's been tributed, then you go minus pretty hard. So if you tribute it and then your opponent goes Call by the Grave or anything like that, then you're going to be in rough shape when this doesn't get a chance to resolve. So if that gets negated, then it's worse than if you were to just have normal summoned the Sensi Genus Loci. So that's it for the regular monsters. We have a couple of hand traps. I am playing Ash, DD Crow, and Imperm, and I guess I'll go ahead and show the Imperm now. 3 play sets of hand traps. I made the comment earlier this year where if your deck can play at least 3 play sets of hand traps and its engine, then it's a pretty good deck. But you can play around with this depending on what your tournament is like. I think these are the best hand traps right now. I have decided to play DD Crows in my decks that play hand traps over Ghost Bells and Ghost Ogres, because I think they are more targeted hate towards cards in the format right now, like a lot of the Tier Lament stuff. And it's not a once per turn, and it can banish more than just monsters. So it's better in certain ways than Ghost Spell, where I felt like Ghost Spell was better in earlier parts of this year with a different format. But you could substitute any of these for board-breaking cards. A lot of our board-breaking cards are in our side deck because this deck does a very good job of going first and second. And a lot of its engine cards just inherently break boards by virtue of tributing your opponent's monsters. So we don't need as many board-breaking cards for the local level. I feel like these cards are more impactful against some of the rogue decks at locals. But certainly, you know, Droplets and Talons would be good in here. If I had 3 copies of Talons, I would probably main that in here. Onto the spells, we have 3 Unexpected Die. So Unexpected Die is not a once per turn. It just requires you to control no monsters. So there was shout-outs to my buddy Ethan at Locals. He was also playing this deck, and there was a situation where I negated one of his Unexpected Dies, or I like banished the monster that was summoned off of it or something crazy like that, and he had a second one in hand, so he just activated the second one and was able to summon it that way. So as long as the conditions are met, you can still activate it, and it just gets you to that Sensi Genus Loci without your normal summon. Not that you really need your normal summon in this deck, which is the crazy thing about it. So yeah, super powerful card. Definitely want to see that if we can. The new Rikka card out of Power of the Elements, the field spell Rikka Konkon, is busted. So on activation, it lets you set a Rikka spell or trap from your deck, which could be Glamour if you're trying to combo off, or it could be Sheet if you need that protection. And it lets you, once per turn, tribute one of your opponent's monsters to fulfill the condition of tributing a plant for the effect of a Rikka card. Now, you need to control a Rikka to be able to get the value off of this. So it's not always live if you have to end on like Bangalancer and not have a Rikka body on the field. So it's always important to have that Rikka body on the field and have some way to actually tribute any one of your opponent's plants. This plus Princess is insane because, you know, Princess can negate one of your opponent's monster's effects and you can tribute their monster as a result of doing that. It's just insane. It depends on what your card effect does to determine if you contribute things that have protection, like things that are unaffected, because you need to be able to tribute it as cost instead of as the effect of it. So like Teardrop, the rank 8, for instance, just lets you tribute your opponent's monsters. If your opponent's monsters are unaffected by that, you can't do that. But if you have one of your cards that tributes for cost and you get to apply that to one of your opponent's monsters where you're paying the cost of the effect by tributing one of your opponent's cards, then this is extremely, extremely powerful and gets around that protection. 3 Glamour. This comboed with Konkon is incredible because Konkon will set Glamour directly to your field from the deck, and you can still activate it that turn because it's a normal spell. You could potentially tribute one of your opponent's monsters to add a Rikka and then a plant with the same level as that Rikka to your hand. So you can go for 2 1s, which would be Petal and Sensi Genus Loci, or 2 4s, which would be Princess and Primula. And if you are going first and you tribute one of your own monsters to fulfill this, like I said, you can actually trigger the Primula on resolution because you tributed a plant monster, and so on resolution, the Primula's in your hand and it recognizes that a plant was tributed, so it can then fulfill its own summoning condition to be summoned to the field, and then you can just summon the princess for free. So this instantly equals your rank 4. It's just so incredibly powerful, going first or second. It's the best value card in the deck. We actually played 2 Sunvine Sowing because if one gets negated, we want another copy in deck. It doesn't hurt to draw this card. It is a hard once per turn. As part of our combo, we search it off of Dryas, the Sunavalon Link 1. I always have to kind of explain the interaction where it's like you activate this, you take 1,000 damage, Dryas gains you back the 1,000 and summons out the healer from your deck. It's a weird interaction, but if your opponent is just kind of along for the ride, then it does what it needs to do. So the one thing you don't want to forget with this card is that it's protection in the graveyard. It's just like Return of the Dragon Lords or Salamangreat Spinny, where if one of your plant cards were to be destroyed, you can banish this from your graveyard to protect them, which is huge. And your opponent forgets about that a lot. And it's one of those things that they're not going to have an answer for that unless they have some way to clear that out of your graveyard, like with DD Crow. So this is, again, one of those forms of interaction that you set up as part of your combo. Like, you're always going to see this as part of your combo. You're always going to activate it. So you don't have to worry about not having that extra protection, although your opponent's probably going to forget that you did that. The rest of the spells are 1-of, so the 1-of Foolish Burial, we can set up the Princess with this. The 1-for-1 lets us have even more access to Sensi Genus Loci or to Petal, which is really good. Of course, the Call by the Grave, because pretty much every deck I'm playing right now is going to play Call by the Grave. It's really a necessary evil. And then the 1 Terraforming to get access to the Con. And then the last card, a trap, is the Rikka Sheet. So this lets you target a monster, and that monster cannot activate its effects this turn. The unfortunate part is that you can't activate that in response to a monster activating its effect to like negate it. It doesn't work that way. But you can tribute a plant monster and take control of one of your opponent's monsters, and it becomes a plant. So it's very similar to DDD Headhunt, as I talked about in the DDD video. And this, if you control Con on your opponent's turn, you can, and they have 2 or more monsters, you can tribute one of their monsters and take control of the other one off of 1 card. It is crazy value, and we always have the potential to see it because of Mudan and Con can set it directly to the field if you already have access to Glamour. So it is huge. The only thing you don't want to do is mill this off of Sylvan Dance Peony, which I've seen happen before. And on that note, let's get to the extra deck. So we have, of course, 3 Dryas. Link 1s are a mistake. In older versions of Sunavalon, you would add the Sunvine Shrine, but now you're going to add the Sowing, which is going to summon the Twin out of your deck. And then the Twin is going to revive back the Sensi Genus Loci, and this guy is going to summon out one of the Sunvine Healers from the deck, which gives you another body. You can also recur that life back, so you can win in time with this, where if you go Sowing, you take 1,000, Dryas gives you the 1,000 back, and then Healer lets you target the Dryas and gain 300, so you can end the phase with 8,300 and win the game. If you want to go that route. It's kind of scummy, but it does work. We have the 1 Thrasher. This card hasn't come up nearly as much as he did in the old versions of the deck. You would have to have Melios on the field to get a lot of value off of this guy. And the unfortunate thing is Melios doesn't give you an arrow that points to this guy, which is a little unfortunate. You would have to have another Sunavalon Link monster in the field that's worth summoning him into to let him gain the attack. And sometimes we just need a differently named Link 1 to convert our loci into, so it helps to have this guy. Aromacerery Jasmine, we use her a lot over the course of our combo. Playing 2 copies of her is not a bad thing. You want to make sure you're careful with the zones you summon your plants to over the course of your starting combo, because if you want to always summon the Twin, let's say if you have Dryas right here, you always want to summon the Twin to either the left or right zone and not directly below it, because you want to have that link arrow available for the healer, and you want to make sure that the Twin or the loci, that she points to them. So you would link the Dryas and the healer into each other for Jasmine, and have Jasmine point to the Twin to blow it up to summon a Lone Fire Blossom out of your deck, for instance. So very, very powerful in this deck. Playing 2 is not a bad idea at all. We also have the Sylvan Dance Peony, which is kind of your backup plan. You can potentially get really lucky and mill at least 2 plants off the top of your deck that can be overlaid into something like Strenna, but they can't be linked off is the problem, so you can still exceed something with them. Hitting a Primula and a Princess is ideal. Hitting Petal is pretty good as well, but it doesn't always work out. I've personally milled all spells and traps off of this. I've seen my opponents mill all spells and traps off of it, but it's a backup plan in case your combo gets interrupted, or you don't want to waste your Jasmine when you know you can't go full combo off like that. Melios just helps you link climb. He is a link 3 that summons back the Sensi Genus Loci, and after you do that, you'll link the Loci and him into Bengal Lancer, which is one of your boss monsters. You can take damage equal to the attack of a monster your opponent controls and bounce that monster, which is pretty strong removal. Plus, he has the ability to recur himself, where you can banish link monsters, plant link monsters in your graveyard whose link rating equals 4, and summon him back. So again, it adds to your mid-range grind game to be able to recur this guy. And if your opponent has an answer to him, it's not fully over unless there's nothing left to banish out of the graveyard. You got 2 Strenna. You make Strenna with Princess and Primula, or if you summon out Snowdrop targeting Princess or Primula, you can make this. You can detach the Princess to add the Mudan back to your hand for follow-up next turn, and now the Princess is live in your graveyard, and even if you don't have Concon set up, if your opponent tries to make a play with a effect monster, you can activate the Princess, shuffling it back into your deck and tributing her to negate that monster's effect, and in doing so, she will replace herself with another monster negate. So when she's tributed, she can float into one of these two. I usually go for the Sacred Tree Beast because that's inherently a monster negate, because Strenna will attach herself to it as material. I've never actually made this guy yet, to be honest, but he seems like he would be really good. But I may consider cutting this in favor of a second Jasmine, or I've seen even some people play a Live Twin Trouble Sunny, which is whatever. I mean, I have a copy of that now thanks to the Megatins, but I would probably go for a second Jasmine, because I've just never made this guy. I'm always going to go for the Sacred Tree Beast. But the Sacred Tree Beast is fantastic. Like I said, you resolve one monster negate with the Princess, and then because she was tributed, she floats into this guy, which gives you another monster negate, which is just amazing. And then finally we have the rank 8, the Teardrop, and she's fantastic. Don't forget about her attack gain bonus as well. This deck isn't exactly known for OTKing, but if you have her plus the Sacred Tree Beast plus Bengal Lancer, and she gains that attack bonus, you can usually OTK pretty easily that way, but it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. But just being able to detach and tribute one of your opponent's monsters is insane. We usually try to summon her in defense to get around Lightning Storm as well. On to the side deck. So I was playing a Pointer in the side deck until that was limited for literally no reason. Like, can anybody come up with a legitimate reason why a Pointer was limited? Because it's limited, we don't really care to play it because it's kind of useless at 1, so we cut it. So I think we would play 3 Nibiru in that slot. I have kind of an empty slot now in the side deck, which is unfortunate. Maybe we'd play 3 Nibiru. Obviously, we'd play like 3 Dark Ruler. Rivalry is crazy in this deck because it is a mono-type plant deck. Does nothing against Sword Soul, does nothing against Math Mech. There are also decks that want to play this card, but it does a lot against the Splight and the Danger Tier Limit decks because all the Dangers are different types. And so if they summon a Danger, we can lock them out with this, and they can't do any of their Tier Limit shenanigans. Got 3 Chalice. This would probably be Droplets, but I only own 1 copy of Droplets, but it's a way to shut off specific negates on our opponent's board and be able to play into them going second if we choose to. And then Anti-Spell for the Sky Striker and the Spellbook matchup. I actually did have a matchup at Locals recently that was a Dogmatica Spellbook deck playing Jaugen the Spiritualist, and it was insufferable. So I'm going to stand by keeping this in the side deck, even though we do play a lot of powerful spells that we would not want to miss out on. So yeah, that is the Rikka Sunavalon deck. Huge shout outs to Amanda LaPalme for this playmat. This is one of her classic ones. I've told the story in the past, but maybe it was on the other channel. I actually bought this from her at her booth at MetroCon in 2018, and it was the only one she had. So she was like, yeah, let me just sell you this one and I'll bring the rest from home or something like that, which I was super grateful for because I'd wanted this design for years and I didn't expect to see that person there. And then these sleeves as well, the extra deck sleeves, come from her as well. Huge shout outs to Hawks Nest Gaming and to Ethan, who's always also playing this deck. And yeah, keep on teaching the plants to link summon.